So I started off when Earl asked me to consider doing this. I started off thinking, well, how in the world you talk to pastors about how to do what they're doing, and yet I know that we each have some strengths in our churches and communities that are unique to our ministries. And so today is not just about you have to do what we've done. Today I want to try to say, okay, how can we do better, and how can we learn from each other, maybe areas that we can do a good job in living Christ in the community. I've been in Hobart for 27 plus years, and living in that community, the biggest frustration is I know everyone in the community, but the only time I get to see them is possibly Christmas and Easter and at a funeral or a wedding. And yet, if I was to walk down the street of Hobart and say, well, what's your church? A good portion of them say, well, it's Hobart Community Church. But you never see them. They're never there. And so my greatest, or one of my greatest frustrations in 27 years is knowing everyone, having talked to everyone, but not having the opportunity to really rub shoulders with them on a regular basis. And that changed about 6 years ago when we were led by the Lord to start a community meal once a week on Monday nights. And we have had probably almost everybody in the community at that meal at one time or another. And a lot of people that I would have never been able to rub shoulders with had it not been for that ministry. And so I want to take some of the principles that we've learned and maybe share them with you, and then go through some ideas that maybe even you have on how we can do a better job. So I want to start off with the biblical principles because that's good IFCA to make sure you've got scripture to back up everything you do, right? That's what we're called to do, is take the Word of God and live it. So I thought, well, where do we get the biblical principles to do social serving in your community, where we socially go and do things in the community? And it's a real problem, I think, with most of us biblical, exegetical pastors. We always want to make sure that we're able to do a message or do something whenever we touch other people's lives. And I think sometimes we miss out on the opportunity to actually build a relationship that then allows you to do that. And so I looked at, even in the Old Testament, God commanded his people, his children, to take care of the poor and needy. When he set up the laws on how to take care of them, he gave, the 7 years and the year of Jubilee, and you were always supposed to be looking out for those that maybe made bad decisions and ended up losing their land, or just didn't have it, and it would still stay in the family, but we would somehow find a way to carry them through. And we know those. So those verses are there that help you remember that. Even the idea of when you do your harvesting, if you miss some, leave it. Some of the poor can come along and take it. And so there was always in God's mind this idea that we're going to take care of the people that God has surrounding us. Even so much so I got to thinking about it. How did God choose, especially the ladies that were in the lineage of Christ? We know Abraham and Sarah, but when it came to Isaac, how did Isaac find a wife? Remember the story? Sent off a servant to find him a wife. And how did that servant find the right wife for Isaac? Well, I'm going to go to this place, and if she brings water to me and my camels, then I'll know that this is the one, right? There was that servant's heart serving, and as soon as she did that, he asked, she said yes, and voila, Isaac, right, had his wife. You go on, I even think of Rahab. If I was going to choose somebody that I would have put in the lineage of Christ, Rahab would have been way off the charts. Why did God? She had faith enough to be a servant to the spies and then called out in faith, now I need you to do this for me. You can go through and you can see how God chose those that he used. And a lot of them had to have the idea of reaching out and being willing to serve. And so I appreciated that a lot. I was just going to point out a couple of the verses. Deuteronomy 15 I have down there. If there is a poor man among your brothers in any of the towns of the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted toward your poor brother. Rather be open-handed and freely lend him whatever he needs. For canceling debts is near, so that you do not show ill will toward your needy brother and give him nothing. He may then appeal to the Lord against you, and you will be found guilty of sin. Give generously to him, and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and everything you put your hand to. In fact, one of the things I remember in studying the Old Testament minor prophets, when God brought judgment on Israel, what were the reasons that he listed for bringing judgment on his own people? If you think back to them, they were not taking care of the poor. In fact, they were gouging, high interest, taking advantage, and not doing justice with those that he called them to serve. So, just wanted to make sure that we realize this has been part of God's heart from way back, that we take care of those that God places around us. We find a way to do it. Proverbs always has some great things, and you probably know this. Proverbs 14:31, he who oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God. Wow, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Mm-hmm. He who mocks the poor, 17:5, shows contempt for their maker. Whoever gloats over disaster will not go unpunished. We all know this one. We quote this: he who is kind to the poor lends to the Lord. You can't get better interest return than lending to the Lord, can you? He always gives more than you give back. And so it's great to think of it that way. I was reading in Jeremiah, and this is talking about the young King Josiah and his heart for taking care of people. And then his son comes on the throne, and he's just a rascal. He doesn't care for the people. He's leading them in the wrong direction, everything else. And Jeremiah says, this is what God would say to you. Do you become a king because you are competing in cedar? Did not your father eat and drink and do justice and righteousness? Then it was well with him. He pled the cause of the afflicted and needy. Then it was well. Is not that what it means to know me? I underlined that because, wow. How do we really understand and get to know the heart of God? We do it by serving those that are needy, that God's placed around us, so that we understand his heart. Yeah, and I hadn't really thought of this before. You really don't know the heart of God unless you're reaching those that we normally don't reach in our churches. And so it was a challenge to me. Jesus, we know the Beatitudes. We know that the majority of his ministry was to publicans and sinners, and he was called out for that over and over and over again. And we also know the Matthew 25 passage where he says, you know, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. And when did we do it? Well, as much as you've done it on one of the least of these, my children, you've done it unto me. Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of examples. How about the early church? What was one of the first things that happened after they had Acts chapter 2 experience? It grew so much that people were being left out. There were widows, there were poor, there were things, and these poor 12 disciples couldn't keep up with the thousands that were pouring in and with all their needs. And so one of the first things they did is enact deacons, right? To serve these so that the pastors can continue doing prayer and search of the word and ministry. And so the early church took it as a command as well. Even Paul in his missionary journeys, one of his journeys was to go through and pick up an offering and bring it back to Jerusalem to take care of the church in Jerusalem was under very heavy persecution and didn't have their needs met. So as the church of Jerusalem had sent out those to reach these, when it turned around and came back on them, they sent back to serve the church of Jerusalem. There was always this flow of love and care for those that God placed around us. And I think that's one of the things I just wanted to bring out. And I didn't want to spend an hour here. We know these principles. You know these verses. They're there. You can read them. And you probably got even better examples. The Corinthian church, Paul in 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9, he's talking to the church at Corinth and saying, look, you're one of the richest churches. And I want to make sure you're prepared to do your part in bringing this back to Jerusalem. And there's some verses that we use over and over again in our giving. You know, give from a heart of love, not out of compulsion, but because you're a cheerful giver. All the principles that we use. And then from there I wanted to go, well, okay, now how do we apply that to us today? And I thought, you know, if I'm going to start a program or a ministry, I need to make sure it fits what we feel as a church God has called us to be and do. If it doesn't fit, then don't do it. Because you're taking away energy from what God has called you to do. And I think that was one of my concerns. I think the concerns of the leadership of the Hobart Church. So if we do this ministry, is it going to take away from the people, the energy they have, and the purpose we have in what we're accomplishing? And it was one of the fears that even I had as a pastor. Look, we're a church of 40, 50 people. How can we put on a community meal? And where are we going to find the workers to do it? And what about the money? You know, all these questions come into our mind. And rightfully for us to go through that process. But one of the things we found out is, and we all know this, whenever we move forward, as God leads us, He always provides the monies, He always provides the people, and He always provides the energy to accomplish what He calls us to. So, and I'm to this day, I'm at the place where God, if you take away that, if the hearts of the people are not in it, if the funds aren't there, if, you know, all these other things somehow disappear, then it's time to change what we do. So I'm not advocating that this is the only way. I'm not even advocating that you need to go home and do this. But what I am advocating is this. Sometimes in our fervor to get the gospel out, we have not first touched the hearts of the people we're trying to reach with serving them. And until we do that, they don't really believe that the words we say are lovingly meant for them. And so my heart is, let's make sure that happens somehow, some way. So I've kind of gone through, our church purpose statement is there. It's too long, but we couldn't agree to cut it down, so that's what it is. And we could easily find a way to put this program in there under serving our Lord through ministry here and missions everywhere. So we felt like we could include this in what we were doing without going away from what our purpose as a church was all about. I think most of your purpose statements have something about glorifying God. Most of them have something about sharing the gospel or reaching the world, or, you know, they're different words, but they have some of the same concepts in them. And so most of you could find that a program like our meal program would fit into your church purpose. I think one of the things that God taught to me about, and I think that He's enabled us to do this, is to determine what are the real needs of our community. What are the needs? There are some places where you have a lot of poor need, and you probably already have ministries there to serve them. You know, if you're downtown Seattle, why would I do Union Gospel for my church when I can just go down there and do it with them, right? So don't beat a dead horse in a ministry or a program that's not needed in your area. But I found that every community has needs that they cannot meet. Look at what those are. Along with our meal program, I've really been concerned. When I moved from Montana to Hobart, I moved from a community that had all its schools in the community, and all the community was involved in the school system. We knew all of our teachers, and we knew the family. It was a small, intimate group where I could send my kids to a public school and not be worried that they were going to be, getting messages that I didn't want, because I had some input into it. Well, then we moved out here to the state of Washington, Montana, and I moved into a school district that had 1,200, 1,500 kids in the high school. There are 4 different grade schools. When we moved here, we talked to some of the people about where our kids were going to be, and they said, well, we can't even guarantee they'll be in the same school because we're crowded, and we got 4 schools, so your daughter may be over there, your son may be over here, and the other son may be over here. And that just didn't fly with my wife or me at all. And so the first thing we did when we chose to go to Hobart, I said, okay, we have to have some school where we have input. And so, lo and behold, God didn't have someone pay for us to put our kids in Maple Valley Christian School. And our kids went 1st through 6th grade in Christian school. And what a blessing to have that input into that system. However, it ended at 6th grade. What do we do now? Well, now we had to try to find a way to protect them while they moved on into the heavy-hitting junior high school age. And so what I found is that Hobart itself had kind of lost its identity because there were no schools in Hobart. There was no anything that connected outside of church, of course, and most of them were coming to church, so what was going to connect them? Well, one of the things I recognize when you take the schools out, guess what else you lose? All your playgrounds. Where are kids going to play? What are they going to do? So I asked the church board, and I talked to them. I said, is there any way we could find in taking our old rundown wooden playground out there and putting in a really nice playground that we could call a community playground? Invite the community to come down, set up picnic tables out there, let the moms come by, drop off, let the kids play while they read a book for an hour, bring a picnic lunch down and have a little lunch, and make it a community place where they could bring their kids. Oh, we don't know about the insurance. Oh, what if somebody gets hurt? What if somebody, there were all the questions that come up with how, and I said, God, this is Hobart. If I was in Seattle, I'd put a fence around it, I'd lock it at night, and this is Hobart. We can still do this. And so we started a campaign, and in about a year, with the community and the churches in the area, the 2 churches that meet at our church, we raised $25,000 and put in together a brand new state-of-the-art playground with all of the fixings, and the kids just, I think some of them come to church to play on the playground. However, that's not entirely bad. We do get time to input into them besides just playing on the playground. And talk about meeting community. I can go out there most any day of the week, and there's usually some mom with a kid out there. And I can go out and say, hey, are you enjoying the playground? Oh, yeah. I love that. And it met a need in our community, because otherwise you'd have to go 10, 15 miles one direction or another just to find a playground for moms to let their kids run off their energy for a little while before they take them home and put them down for a nap. That's what I mean about thinking about what does your community really need? What's out there that is not available that you can see they need? Some of you may be in after-school tutoring. You got kids that they're riding the bus. Mom and dad don't get off till 5, and from 3 to 5 there's nothing. Whatever the case is, but how do we find those needs? And I think that's one of the, and determine the needs. That's one of the things that we need to do. And then how do we ignite the desire to meet those needs in your church? Because if it's just the heart of the pastor that's doing it, you've got enough on your plate already. The disciples had to make deacons, the apostles had to make deacons so that they could still do the ministry and take care. And so while you may have to have heavy involvement to get it going, the idea is that you ignite the energy of the body of Christ so that they can take it over. And we've seen that happen for us. So, the beautiful practice of living Christ in the community. I put in there, surrounded by wolves. One of my favorite illustrations was there were two fur hunters that were hunting for wolves, and they went out and camped one night, and they heard the howling of the wolves all around them, and so they, oh good, we're going to find them. We're going to find them. We're going to be able to find this. And they wake up in the morning, and there's a whole pack of wolves surrounding their camp. And the one guy turns to his partner and says, "We better pray now because we're doomed." And the other guy says, "No, we're rich. Look, there they are." And so it's just a matter of determining in your heart how you're going to look at the needs in your community, because part of our communities really stink. I mean, you've all heard you don't become a pastor, you love the smell of sheep. Well, some of our communities have a lot of stinky sheep. And it's not fun when you're dealing with drug addicts and alcoholics and things like that. It can be a nasty thing. We've had issues with that in our meal where we had to ask them not to come back and politely lead them off the property. There are issues. So don't get into this thing, oh, we're just going to do it, and everybody's going to love it, and everything's going to be fine. No, there will be some things, but we have to have the mindset that says, you know what, we can look at these wolves and we say, oh no, we're doomed, it'll never work. Or we can look at these wolves and we say, wow, we're rich. And we need to be able to find a way to do that if we're going to serve our community. Sometimes we view the politics in our community. I mean, live in Seattle for a while, Seattle area, and there's nothing in politics that I can agree with. Basically there just isn't. Fortunately, Hobart's known as the redneck area of King County, and not just rednecks, but I mean people that have old values, and people that I can connect with. And yet, I also know, I used to be a hunter from Montana, and I don't advertise that from the pulpit anymore. Montana, we talked about how big they were and how many we got. You just don't talk about that in the church because there's too many ladies out there. Oh, you're so big. You don't do that. So you learn how to do things, but at the same time, you find a way to minister to the people that God gives you by seeing their needs and still holding on to the principles you have. I already mentioned. We worry about the lack of funds and the people to do it. And then I just kind of briefly wrote out the story of how it came to me, but I'm going to tell it instead of reading it. This is just there so you can maybe have something to look at. In 2001, there was another church in our area in Black Diamond, about 10 miles away, that had started a meal program every Wednesday. And they were connected to a ministry of the Churches of Covington, which is about 15 miles away, that they gathered things from different areas to give out to people that did meals or to serve groups that gave out food or things like that. They called it the Storehouse Ministry. And the Churches of Covington built this where U.S. Foods, Northwest Harvest, anybody that would bring to that location, and then they would give it out to Kent and different churches and ministries all around to do ministry. Well, I was at a pastor's retreat with this guy from Black Diamond. He says, you know what? We need to get you involved in this. I don't need another program. I really don't know, And I said, well, we got more food than we know what to do with. If you just come over here, we'll divvy it up, and we'll still have plenty of food, and you'll be able to do this program. It doesn't really cost that much, well, let's take a look at it, and we'll see. And so we did, and lo and behold, if God didn't opened the door with a lot of people in our church that were just looking for a way. Well, how can I help? I can't preach or teach, but I know how to cook. And we got a gal in our church. I'll tell you what, she is like, this church has one too. What we ate this week, the restaurant cook that basically put on our meals here. This gal she doesn't own a restaurant, but she could. And she knows how to make something out of nothing. You give her a couple things, well, we can do this with it. Oh, okay, never thought of that. And even stuff that I would have thought, and people come and go, oh, well, that's the best I've ever had. And mostly it's because they're hungry, so they'll eat. But you have people in your church that just feel like, I can't sing, I can't preach, I can't teach, I'm not very good at that, I don't have good communication skills. But guess what? I can cook. I know how to do dishes. I can wash all the tea towels and the hand towels and the dish rags. And before long, and Bob can attest to this, we had, I'd say 60 to 70% of the church is involved in one way, shape, or form making this meal happen. Everything from going, soon after we got hooked with Storehouse, they hooked us up with Safeway and Fred Meyer, and so we had pickups from them coming into the church. We not only had more than enough for the meal, we started being basically a little food bank for those that came to the meal. Here, take a loaf of bread out there. Here's some bananas. Here, whatever it was that we got that week. And before we knew it, we just had an excess. And I'm going, wow, well, what are we going to, we've only got this one freezer. We bought a freezer, it's packed, what are we going to do? And I thought, what we really need is one of those big commercial double-door freezers. It'd been great if we had a walk-in, but we didn't have room for that. And so I happened to be on the area council that had been demoted a little bit with funds from King County. What King County did is said, well, instead of funding your council, we're going to fund different community entities with the funds from that. So they had a $60,000 thing that they dedicated to area councils that they had now for grants, so just apply. Voila, I applied. They bought a $3,000 double-door freezer for our meal program. Now that's King County in Seattle. Not only that, I applied again, they put $3,000 towards a playground. So sometimes the enemy, actually God uses to provide what we need. So you just have to, kind of get out of that little box we're in where this is our ministry, I'm protecting my church, and how can I meet the community, and where in the world are we going to find the ability to do it? And allow God to open those doors along the way. And He does, and He will. And if He doesn't, you just don't do it. Maybe that's a simple way of putting it, but I think that's what we found. Okay, if we don't have the people, if we don't have the funds, if we don't have the food, why, we just don't do it. Recently, about a month ago, it's been over about the last 6 months or a year, but we've been pressured as a church to sign on with a government-run program that Safeway and Fred Meyer started to use. It's called Food Lifeline. And they're just doing what government does, which is have different rules that you have to follow. Well, I didn't have a problem with a lot of the rules. If we needed to get food handlers permits, if we needed to make sure we passed inspection, if we needed to do this or that, keep better records, we'll find a way to do that. But when the gal come to visit our meal that we were going to sign this contract with, and I'd read in the contract, there was always those words, well, you can't force any religious activity with your, and we don't do a message at our meal. We feel like it's an opportunity for us to know the community, and we'll build a relationship. If we're sitting there talking to them and they have a prayer request, we'll pray with them. If we get the opportunity to show interest in the Lord, we'll share a tract with them, we'll give them a Bible. All this stuff is fine, but we don't have an organized service that goes with our meal. And so I thought, well, maybe we'll see how this works. So she came, and the first thing I did at the start of the meal is I stood up and prayed. She came to me, "Do you always do that?" I said, "Well, yeah. The Lord's provided the food, the Lord's provided the church. Why wouldn't we do that, right?" And she says, I said, only do it once. I don't pray every 5 minutes to make sure. And we have a room that seats about 48, and we serve 80 to 100 meals. So people come in and rotate through and go out. So I just pray at the start, and a lot of those that are hungry are there at the start. Because if you wait till 7, you may be pushing your luck, okay? But that attitude of, I don't know. So what's she going to do if we start praying with somebody here? What is she going to do if we hand them a Bible? What are they going to do with that? And so
it is a church.
Yeah, it is a church, right? And so I thought, well, I can't sign a contract where I'm going to lie about whether I'm going to do this ministry or not. The other thing, and even she disagreed with this, but she says we have to do it this way because that's what the government tells us. We had so much come in that we actually took from our supplies, and we had a freezer down at a place called Vine Maple Place, which is a place for single parents struggling to make it, and they provided housing units and training to get better income and everything else. And we set up a freezer down there, and we would take our surplus down, put it in the freezer so the moms could raid the freezer and have meals. And we had that going on. One of our chief cook lives in low-income housing in Renton. And she says, I know a lot of our people that could really use them. I said, anything we have left over Monday night, please take it, because we got to get it cleared out for the next one, the next batch coming in. And so she would take her car, pack down to her housing unit, and unload it, and people would come down there and grab it all, And then if we had stuff that just turned bad, moldy bread, rotten produce, whatever, we had a pig farmer lined up to take it down to feed his pigs. Everything went, and it was just a blessing to watch that happen. But it doesn't always happen that way. So because I didn't sign the contract, a month ago, Fred Meyer and Safeway both said, sorry, you can't have the pickup any longer. So we lost that. We still have a storehouse, we're still doing the meal, but now we have at least suspended for now the handout of foods. And it affects our people, we know that. Even the church has benefited by it. We have a potluck, we've got something that we can serve. We just had a church retreat. All of the main dish foods came from the meal program to do the church retreat. There was a lot of benefits. One of my favorite stories is I always try to do something for Mother's and Father's Day, have something for the moms and this and that. And I was getting tired of just buying them a flower, And I'd done the go to the dollar store, get some gag gifts thing, and at least they have something to take home. And I go, what am I going to do this year? And lo and behold, the Saturday before Mother's Day, 90 boxes of Russell's chocolates donated to us from Fred Meyer. And not only do we have enough for every woman to have one, I said, I want you to take one, I want you to share the love with somebody else with it. If you take another one, you have to tell them about the Lord and give it to them and say, this is a gift from the Lord to you, we love you. And 90 boxes of chocolates went out to all over our community. And it was really, we never knew what was going to happen. We also started the shoebox ministry, the Samaritan's Purse shoebox ministry. Oh, where are we going to find all the stuff we need for that? Lo and behold, the Fred Meyer didn't clear out their toy department, and all of a sudden we got these stuff in these boxes, and 166 boxes we were able to send out last year just because we had overrun of things that have been given to us that we could use. And so what I find is you go in and say, Lord, how are we going to do this, and how are we going to have the funds, and how's this going to happen? And all of a sudden you're blessed beyond the ability to even use it all. So I think our church is getting a little rest break right now from doing 2 pickups, which is 4 people every week, going to pick up food at these stores and bring it back, put it on the shelves, the refrigerator, whatever else. So this is kind of, they're getting a break right now, and I'm sure the Lord will open other doors if He wants us to bring that back on. But I think what I wanted to share is that we started off very timidly hoping that God might do something. And we started off the first week we had 20, the next week we had 40, we stayed 40 and 50 for a long time, and then all of a sudden we bumped up to 80. We've had over 125 for special meals, Christmas, Easter, and whatnot. And that's a lot of cooking and work. We've had to add appliances to the kitchen. We've had to add, do different things, but God's God's always provided. One of the other blessings was, we were talking about, because you don't always have everything you need given to you. You might need something, you might need cheese to go with your meal. You might need, something that didn't come in. Paper products, so we don't have to wash all the dishes from this. That stuff doesn't always come in. And so there's anywhere from probably 20, 30 bucks a week, maybe 50 bucks a week that ends up going into supplies that don't come. And so we're thinking, well, wow, is that gonna, because, we're not rich. Yeah?
Question, how did you get, when you were getting started with that, I'm kind of seeing Wishkop there, and I'm picturing it, it'd be a perfect place to get that started. How did you get the word out to all the people in the community? How'd that get out there?
Well, we got a sign. We set it out with that. We're on the main drag through Hobart.
We're the only building.
We're the only building besides the Hobart Mall, which is gas station, convenience store, post office, all in one. And those are the two buildings we have on the drag through Hobart. That's all there is. Okay? Which is another reason why Hobart is very unique. It's called a community church because it is a place where the communities always come. We used to do voting in there when we used to come to do voting. Anybody dies, anybody has something, Pastor, how can we borrow the church? Pastor, how can we do this? Pastor, and I at first was going, what are we going to charge them? How are we going to take care of all this? And I thought, you know what? It's a ministry, and the people that come to the church actually may come back and visit. And the opportunity to touch people that would never darken the door of the church, because it's kind of a community center, why would I make it hard for them to do it? And so any member of the community that passes away, I don't charge them. If they ask if they want to donate, I allow them to do that, but I don't charge for a funeral. I figure that's, in most churches, large churches, in order to keep a building like this up, or some of the larger churches, you can't do that with some of the things. But I've found that, the community members, the people in our churches, the people that we minister to, that access has really built a good relationship with them. The Hobart store, which is just down about 3 blocks from us, is run by one of our church members. That's where the post office is. If we want anything to happen in Hobart, we post something down here at the store, and everybody sees it. Okay? So that's what you might have to find other ways to make that happen, depending on what your community is. You can put it in the paper, but papers don't do good anymore. You might even just get your church members to post something on Facebook, or something that they can copy and paste and send out to somebody else. And that might even be a better way to get your word out.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yeah,
It doesn't take long till good food and they start coming. Especially when it's free, and when we try to make it so that if you're hungry, you can come back for seconds, you can come back for thirds, and we'll even give you a plate to take home if you want. If we have it, we do it, And we try to make sure that we cook for about 120, so we got plenty of food to send home with people. What we found is we've started now 4 of these around Maple Valley, Black Diamond, and Hobart. And a lot of these people that are really needy go from one meal on Monday night, that's ours, to the next meal on Wednesday night, and we give them a take-home, so they got Tuesday taken care of. And, there's some of these people that are actually going to all 4 meals and having their needs met. When I started this as a pastor, I thought, there aren't that many homeless and people hungry in Hobart. We pretty well, my eyes ever opened to how many people are around it. And then, so I started this. I said, we want to make this a community fellowship gathering. So we want the old folks that don't have anything to do in the evening to come on down. I even advertise because a lot of us guys are pretty cheap. Let's take your wife on a date night. Bring her to the meal. It's free, and she doesn't have to cook. There's lots of ways you can jokingly promote it, and there's lots of ways where it actually reaches out. We have a number of elderly that, they have the funds to buy the food they need. They're not going to die. But how many of you cook for one? And if you cook, you usually ended up eating the 3 meals before you get done with it. You know what I'm talking about. don't want to have fried chicken 3 days a week. They want to be able to come down here and have chicken enchiladas, or they want to have spaghetti, or they want to have, roast beef, or whatever it is we're serving. And so, yeah. So one of the things then that became a little bit of an issue was, how do we make sure we keep the gospel available and in front? And so, as we were talking about it as a board, because we haven't seen huge numbers added to the church pews through this. We've had some, but we haven't, in my mind is bad. Well, I should see 20 people more coming to church after serving this. No, they felt like they were at church. They're not saved, a lot of them, and okay, we went to church, right? We had a meal there. So we had to find a way to bring the church to the meal. 2 ways we did that. We encouraged our own church members to show up and eat and sit down side by side and just visit. A lot of these people are just lonely. They don't talk to anybody. The only thing they have that says they can do is their TV. So having a live person listen to them, listen to their needs, love on them, and every time they come in the door, hi, good to see you, glad you're here tonight, Even that, they don't get that at home. Maybe the dog. That's the only person that really greets them, So that was a large part of it. The board asked, my elder board says, we want to keep the word in front. How do we do that? And so we contacted the Gideons. We get all their good Bibles left over from replacing at the hotels. We keep them on site. When we were giving out food, we also had Bibles there. We had tracts. We had different information about things happening at the church. And we just stuffed whatever into the bag of groceries to take home with them. I call it the Bonnie ministry. We have a lady in our church named Bonnie, and she was called to this. She has a loving, very, very strong, vibrant Christian testimony in the community. She shouldn't be alive, and God's saved her. She still has a brain tumor that she deals with. She's been through cancer, and she just loves on everybody coming through. And they come there, and they just pour their heart out to her. And she spends the rest of her week answering phone calls and visiting people that have come to her at this meal and need something, even if it's just an encouraging word. I don't have time to do it all. But we have our Bonnies, we have Larry, we have Dave, and these guys come, and they do what I haven't got to. A lot of times they're doing something I don't even know anything about. But I know people have come to Christ through it. I know families have been saved, marriages have been saved. I know that kids have been loved out of a tough situation where they're now vibrantly acting like normal kids instead of just either so shy that they won't talk or so angry that you can just see it pouring out of them. That love when they come in is exactly what they need. And from adults that care. These kids don't have a mom and dad, some of them. Some of them are being taken care of by their grandparents, and they just need another loving figure in their life. That all happens because they show up at this meal, we make a connection, and we're able to take the ministry from there. And that, we started writing a verse on the whiteboard in the room. When we painted, and we took the whiteboard down, so we're trying to figure out a better way to do that again. We may put a TV screen up verse on it that we got in the corner we just installed with some PowerPoint slide or something that has verse on it. Just find ways. One of the ladies says, well, why don't we just put some tracts in? I developed a prayer card that would be on the tables beside the donation can. We do have a can out. We don't even advertise it. It just sits by the coffee can. About $20 comes in every week, something like that. It's enough to help pay for the paper products and whatnot. And people, a lot, you'd be surprised at these that are hungry. Even if they throw a quarter in or they just pull some change out, they feel like they've been able to have a part of this. One of the other things that's happened, a lot of alcoholic drug users, a a lot of troubled lives, and a lot of them that end up going to court for something, and they're not child abusers, they're not murderers, they're not thieves. They just drove when they were a little incapacitated, or after they got through with that, they drove without getting their license renewed, or you know the ones. And so they're coming to me and they're saying, is there anything we can do to do our community service here? Because we would rather do our community service in our community to help our community than just go to downtown Seattle and get on the sign-up list and go pick up garbage along the road. We would rather be able to do something in a place where we enjoy what's being done for us. You'd be surprised at how many weeds have been pulled in our flower gardens, how many rooms have been mopped and cleaned, how many different little projects. And I save these little projects just for, I will give you a caveat with that. You can't depend on them like you do your own church members. So don't give them something that has a time limit that has to be done by, or they will probably not show up one time, and the other thing is they will try to show up the day before they have to go to court, and they need 40 hours of community service. And I had to deal with that right away, and I said, okay, look, I'll give you the 5 hours. I'll sign a letter saying 5 hours you've served. And I'll even sign something that says you contracted with me to complete this project. But I'm not going to lie and say you did 40 hours when you showed up one day. And so that's just some of the downside to that. But the good side is I've been able to share the gospel with some of these. We've had some of them turn their lives around. Some of them still struggle with it, just like Brother Brubaker was telling us about the addictions even in the ministry people over there. These people, most of them don't just drop it and get over it the first time. They usually fall off the wagon a couple times, end up in the hospital almost dead. Of course, now I'm their pastor, right? So I can go in and visit them. There's all sorts of things that come from this. But, so it branches out in ministry. I actually think the playground actually came into fruition because of the meal program where everybody saw the need. And so that helped us. So that $25,000 we have for the playground, by the way, we had $1,000 from the Rotary in Maple Valley. We had money come from different people, different businesses. I think we did a meal.
Did we do an auction?
An auction, and we gathered things from, I think there were like 50 different businesses in Maple Valley.
Yeah,
that donated.
Charlotte Nitschke got it that.
Charlotte Nitschke.
She
I
ran
had a
an
gal
auction
that
for cancer.
says, "Why do this?" I said, "Good, do it." And she took it and she went through downtown. She said she visited 70 businesses and probably had about 50 of them give something, a free haircut. It was something that they do, and they would donate. And voila, I think we raised a couple $3,000 with that. There's just unending ways that God can help you find a way to do the ministry.
You have a dessert auction, and some of the desserts go for $50 to $100.
Yeah, because they know who cooks, and they know what they do.
And they know where it's going.
They know where it's going too. They're not afraid to do it. So I have a list on the page 4 of the different things that I've seen done in the area. Our meal program, food and clothes distribution. We have one church in the area that does firewood all winter long. So some of your seniors that can't cut their firewood anymore, they'll deliver a cord at a time, So you have loggers in your church, or you have people that like doing that kind of stuff. That might be something you want to look at. Giving rides to elderly, to doctor's appointments, and other needs. We don't have bus in Hobart. You have to go 10 miles to Kent, Renton, or Issaquah to get the bus line to get into town to doctor's appointments. Sometimes you have people that have that ability. Volunteer fire departments. A lot of our small areas have a volunteer fire department. Get involved. Find a way. If not you, maybe somebody from your church that has that drive and that heart to be involved in that. Find a way to get involved and support them in it. chaplaincy, nursing home visitation, you guys do this. Playground and park, roadside cleanup, maintenance, special community parades and holiday programs. Make a Difference Day, you guys have that? Maple Valley has Make a Difference Day, and it's an opportunity for the community to come together and clean up areas and do projects. Our ministerial association took on a job of, along one of the walking trails where they now built a brand new high school that opened this year. They had a forested area that was being used by the drug addicts and people living out in the woods. And so when we asked the police officer, who comes and prays with us, by the way, what we could do. He said, well, that area really needs cleaning. Nobody wants to go in there. And we need people that we can depend on to go in and clean up, and that will listen to us and use the right thing to pick up the needles, whatever is also out there. And there's mattresses, rubber tires, tents, everything under the sun that you could think of out in these woods. And we took one Saturday, we brought all the churches together that we could. 250 of our church members showed up, and we cleaned that whole area out in about 3 hours. Dump truck loads of junk. And now they have the high school there, and a clean area for them to do their walking, running trails without having that right next door and be afraid. There's just different things like that, and you can get together with some of the other churches to do some of it too. We're small churches, some of us, and we can't do all this. But maybe, even if you just have a couple people go show up and help out, you'll be surprised at how many people, oh yeah, you were there helping, weren't you? And they recognize that. Shelters, ministries for single parents. Vine Maple Place is a ministry that was started by the churches of Maple Valley and Hobart to meet the needs of these single moms. We had more, divorcees, single moms, in different shapes of form, and even single dads eventually. And we actually purchased an old rundown apartment complex, and the churches went in and remodeled it and set it up so that they could have a program where moms could come in, have a place to stay that was safe, get them, most of them did not have a job, or a job that did not pay enough. So we contacted Green River Community College. We got free tuition for them to go take and get a 2-year associate's degree. There's all sorts of different things that come from this. And we now have a vibrant ministry. In fact, all the churches now use it. If we have someone to come to us, we haven't got a place for a single mom on the run in our church. And anymore, I don't really want to advertise, oh yeah, I've got a deacon down the road here, he'll let you stay there. No, it's not a safe situation to do that. They're not trained, they don't know how to help them. It's just a bad situation. Now we have a ministry who say, well, check here, see if they have room. If they don't have room, they know where you can get help. Because that's what they do. And boy, we helped start it, but boy, it's taken over, and it's actually ministering to us by meeting needs that we can't do. Encourage your people to get involved in the Rotary Chamber. I know, Chamber of Commerce, city councils, area councils, fire department, police department, committees, all those things. The area council has 3 of our church members on it out of the 12. They had 4 or 5 at one point. I dropped out of it because I felt like it was taking too much of my time. I did not have the time to put into it. But my members hopped right in and filled the positions, and most of the time they get on if anybody's willing to do it, right? Nobody wants to do it for free. Spend 3 hours once a month on a Monday night for free. It's not something they want to do. But if you get involved with that, that's where you find out what the needs of your community are. Okay? Another thing that happened is most of you have been dealing with the problem of what do we do with pot, marijuana, right? Well, lo and behold, if they didn't didn't plant a place within a half a mile of Hobart Community Church out in the middle of nowhere, And boy, talk about an uproar in Hobart. We almost had World War III out there. You can't bring that stuff into our community, that's not right. Well, legally they could. There was nothing you could do about it. But guess where they had the meetings with the King County Council? All in my church. Community meetings there. I got to hold the microphone and try to keep two people from getting at each other while they argued, you know. But guess what? I built relationship with people through that. You were there for us. You allowed us to do that. That's how we built relationship with King County. As soon as they saw our name on the request for funds, oh yeah, they allow us to meet there. Here, you know, I've never applied that they don't give me something. They don't always give me. At one time I applied for 5,000, they only give me 3. But you know, hey, every little bit helps. And I try to take every other year or so off because I know that they'll probably give it to me if I ask. But we have yearly, sometimes more than that, King County Council comes out to meet with the community. They meet right there. They're afraid to go up on the platform, so I have to set up something down below. But they set up down there, and we have a community meeting there. They had problems with fire burning a couple houses down not far away. We don't have fire hydrants in our community, and we have a local fire department location, but it's only manned 3 days a week by a volunteer. And so the house is burnt down right down the road, and the equipment in that location never even left the place because nobody's there to run it. They brought it from Kent and Renton and Issaquah in to fight the fire. Well, boy, did that upset people from Hobart. What do you mean? There was a truck right there. They could have been there in 2 minutes. And you guys, it took 30 minutes to get it. By the time you got there, all you're doing is keeping it from spreading, right? And so we had a good talk. Find a way to leave a key there. 90% of Hobart knows how to drive a truck. You know, we'll get it there. Of course, they won't do that because there's a lot of legal things involved with it. But you know, just the ability to be able to share our frustrations and try to work out a better way to make things happen in our community. All of that. The police show up and do a meeting whenever there's a concern about issues in the area. Find a way to allow yourself to be used in ways that, you know, in a larger city, that probably can't happen. They'll use a community hall, they'll use a library, they'll use something, you know. Find a way to do that. And it all flows to allow you to have that impact on people that you would never normally get to see or touch. And so those are some of the things we do. How about a welcome committee party? You know, some of you have a visitor center out here. Some of your people work there, so you actually know. How many are connected to know when somebody new moves into the community so that you can give them a welcome package or something like that? Have your ladies bake a little cake or something that you can put in the freezer and drag out and take along with you. Hey, welcome to the community. We're glad to see you. Here's our service times, and we'd love to see you sometime. Thank you. And, you know, build that relationship. Find a way to do it. Good. Pretty well talked about most things. Another thing that I got connected with was once a year under a tree right across from the Hobart Mall, Hobart store, there was a huge, huge fir tree. It had been planted in 1950s when one of the community youngsters was killed accidentally. And it was planted in his memory, and they started lighting it up at Christmas time, and they started having a Christmas tree sing-along right down under the tree. They'd set up a sheet and some sort of something and put the words up there, a little bouncing ball, and sing and sing and sing and bring hot chocolate and cider and cookies and whatever. He'd bring his leftover stuff from the store over, and you know, the community just got together. And lo and behold, they needed somebody to lead it. Pastor Rob, you got a good voice. How about you? So down I go. Every year, you know, last year was the first year we didn't have it because the tree is too big to get the lights on now, and there's too much traffic on the Hobart Issaquah Road to block it off for the service. So now I'm thinking with the people that put it on, well, why don't we just do it down to church? We got a tree down there. If not, we'll plant one. We'll start one, you know. But find ways to have your people come. Another thing we do is called the Hobart Blast. We have some pyro guys involved in it. And he was taking his test for pyro license. And lo and behold, the guy giving the test says, now, you're not allowed to do fireworks except blah, 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 blah. And one of those reasons was for religious occasions. A little bright light come on this guy's mind. He says, well, what if we did? Well, I guess we couldn't stop you. They were thinking of Chinese New Year celebration, or, you know, something like that. They weren't thinking of some podunk little church putting on a fireworks display. Well, this guy saved all his fireworks from the fireworks season. He comes out with all his electronic things, sets up his equipment with Christian music, puts on a 20 to 25 minute professional fireworks show in Hobart. And we invite the community, 150, 200 people come around, everybody just gets out the doors, sits in their chairs, watches it, claps, and, you know, and we put on a hot dog feed, and we have a watermelon eating contest, a tug of war, and we just make it an old-time community event. We weren't able to do that this year because of fire danger, and that's one of the problems we have. But we did it the week after the start of school, celebrating the end of summer and the start of school. And lo and behold, people love it, except those that had some dogs. We had one dog get away. So we had to make sure we got the word out well enough that people could take care of their animals, because we do have a lot of animals surrounding the area. So the first year we had a learning process, but Sunday morning after the Saturday night fireworks show, I had a gal show up at the church before church, and she just cussed me up once I had down the other. She's a neighbor right across the street. I said, well, we advertised, didn't you see the sign? Yeah, but I thought it was just going to be a little family fireworks thing. I did not know that you were going to have World War III going on out there, you know. And so her dog ran away and actually got out on the road and got hit and was killed. It was however, she come to the meal, and now she brings food over to the meal, and she says, one thing I have to say for you guys, she's not a Christian. You practice what you preach. And she brings food over during the seasons. She buys hams at Christmas and Easter, turkeys, and says, give these to people that need it. And she'll do that kind of stuff just because she appreciates the ministry that's there, even though she's not part of our church. And you guys know some of this happening in your church, but just wanting to share that with you. One of the things I wanted to do, because I've done all the talking, I wanted to open up for questions and also maybe some different things that you guys do that maybe we've never thought of. Because, like I said, this meal program may not be your thing. But there's got to be something that you can do to better serve Christ in your community. And we need to be looking for that in our church. So what are some of the things that you guys do to do ministry? Yeah?
Here at SPC, we run a program on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning called Sons of Issachar. Everybody's interested in prophecy and what's coming on. People watch the news and they go, something's happening. These times are different than the times used to be. So we present a program that's prophecy-oriented and current event-oriented to connect the two. We have people, we average 50 people a week, sometimes it's as many as 100.
Wow.
And we had 12, last time we did a poll, we had 12 different representatives from 12 different churches who meet here from the area to be part of the program. So it started out as an idea. A couple guys got together and started previewing material. We meet once a week, preview and set up our schedule. And with the amount of new material coming out every week, we fairly consistently change our schedule once a week. We've got it mapped out for the next 4 months.
Right.
But with new material coming out, we present the
Been
new
able to
stuff
add.
quickly.
Yeah.
And all the seminars and the prophecy conferences.
I know, I think one of the things we need to be prepared for too, that's a great way because it's very easy to share the gospel with prophecy. I mean,
Oh, yes.
it's front and center. You better believe this because this is what's happening, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and virtually everything we present, when we use Jonathan Kahn and Joe Richardson and people, and it always ends with gospel and invitation.
Right.
So it's good stuff.
Great, that's a good idea. I would connect that with the disaster things that are happening around us now.
Yes.
We as churches should be ready to find a way to minister Amongst the churches in our area, some of you may have actually seen on, what's the guy, Mike, he does the dirty jobs on TV.
Mike Rowe, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see, just recently, a program that put a light on a group called the Soup Ladies? They're from Black Diamond. They have, the area has gotten together and bought them a trailer that makes meals. And so whenever there's a disaster, they pull that down to Houston. They set up and feed people that are doing, and they do that all over. It's part of the ministry of our community that we're involved with. And there they are, from little Podunk, Black Diamond, Hobart area, advertises, these people are here, they're serving great food. She owns a restaurant, so she knows how to do it. And they set up a brand new trailer for her, bought it, and now she has that brand new silver-plated trailer that looks like, you know, the Taj Mahal of eatery trailers that you can pull around. And she goes around, and it was started by the local churches, and people in the church say, I want to be able to take, I see that, I can't just sit still, I gotta be involved somehow. Hard Hats for Christ may have ability to take some of your men and use them to go to different areas and help rebuild and do things. There's plenty of those types of ministries, but, yeah. Do you have something to share?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about, you mentioning the trailer. I'm an elder at our church, and our new pastor, we've just had him for 4.5 months.
Mhm.
But he has a real heart for children's ministry, and we have an old church. Everybody, we have no kids. But we do have now a couple of younger families coming. But what he brought was what's called a story house, and it's a 40-year-old building that his dad built that we've loaned out to CEF. But the story house, it's a little house on a trailer that you can tow. It's 10-foot square that fits into, like for instance, this summer, we took it to the county fair,
Yeah.
because they have 10-foot
Yep.
spaces for their booths, where kids can come in and they tell Bible stories and sit inside this cute little house. And it's a way to you know, touch children, and it can go to any kind of functions, anywhere, because it's easy to tow and set up. Anytime there's any kind of a function in any of the little towns, it's easy to transport and set up, and you've got an instant touch on kids.
Yeah. That's neat. Roy?
The Forest Glade Community Church, which is out from Snohomish, a couple of the men there started, and their wives working with them, where they take pickups and they just drive throughout the area, and the people that are standing on the corners, and you know, with signs.
Right.
But in this pickup, they have, I don't know if it's just sandwiches or if it's more like a Subway type thing.
Right.
But the ladies make these, and then they drive around, and I don't know all that they do, whether they have tracts or Bibles with it, but they go throughout a whole lot of Snohomish County, at least a couple of days or nights a week. And again, it's similar, but it's different. But it's an attempt to reach people that are in need.
Yeah, definitely so. You know, and I do want to emphasize, if there's a ministry doing something, you don't have to invent the wheel. You can just get involved in that ministry. I'll give an example. One of the newcomers into our church works with Samaritan's Purse. They actually go back to Minnesota and help with all the containers that send all those shoeboxes all around the world. So they're extremely involved in that. I had her share in our church, and she shared, and I trust her statistics. She says every 20 seconds someone receives Christ through the shoebox ministry. Every 20. Now, where can you get more bang for your buck than that? You know, if you find someone that's doing it good, just hop in and help them. Just become involved with it. And I think sometimes we have to even get over. When I came to Hobart, I I had an idea that, okay, this church has got 6 people here, but it's got a building that'll seat 200. And I was one of the wolf hunters that said, this is great. There's nowhere to go but
Up.
right? And in my mind, in 3 to 5 years, I should have this place filled. People are moving into this area like nobody's business, and there's no reason why we shouldn't just be busting at the seams. 5 years later, we're at 20 to 30. Lord, what's wrong? Other groups are sending in church planting groups, and the Conservative Baptists did, and they all, and all these church plants, they come in, they start off with 200, and they're reaching 500 in a year. And I go, oh, Lord, what's wrong with what I was really upset. But you know what? I started, the Ministerial Association invited me, and we came, we started praying. We don't do anything but sit down and start praying for our community. And every Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock, we get together. And we started praying together. Vine Maple Place came from that. Some of the other ministries in the community come from that. Because one church couldn't do it. You get us all together, we can move mountains, man. We can do a lot. And that group of pastors, there's a bunch of them that have been there 20 years now, just like me. And we are the gatekeepers of our community. And they look at Hobart and said, oh no, you're out on that outside wall. You may not have very many people, but you're reaching people that we can't even begin to touch. Don't you ever think that we're in competition. We're not in competition. I thought, well, I need to have youth ministry. We haven't got any youth. Why should I? And because we're zoned 5 acres, most of the people moving into the area are 40 to 50 to 60-year-olds that have had 2 jobs for a long time. Because you have to have 500 grand just to buy enough acreage to put a normal house on it. And if you have a nice house, you got $1 million. So you're not getting the 20 to 30 or 40-year-old people moving into our area. They're moving into Maple Valley in the apartments. So why am I beating a horse to do what these other churches are doing there? Why am I not ministering to what God's given me? And I had to learn it, to change the way I think. However, just like you were sharing, we're a bunch of old folks. We have mostly 50 to 80, 90-year-olds. But we love kids. We want to have a kids ministry. Judy Allen, Bob's wife, does a children's ministry in our church. She does a children's church. For a long time, we'd have 5 kids. Put in the playground, 15 to 20 kids. So sometimes what you do out there really impacts what you're able to do in the church. And so don't close your eyes to stuff that you can do in the community, because it does open doors. And it allows you to have it's not just the right, but the relationship with people to be able to share Christ in a way where they know you're not attacking them, they know you love them. They know that you care, that you go to heaven. And they may not even agree with you, but you know what? They'll listen because they know you care, because you've shown it. And that's what this stuff is about. And so, yeah, anybody else have another program that you do that you think, yeah?
You mentioned you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We felt the need for a security program at the church here, and we put together a program. If anybody has interest in a security program, I've got a nice PowerPoint I put together. I can send it electronically. It answers the common objections that you hear why we shouldn't have a security program, with really good answers. And it gives you a real nice format on how to take one bite of the elephant at a time and establish something. Anything you have is better than nothing.
Yeah. We've had to install a neighborhood watch. Most of the people in Hobart would leave their doors unlocked, their cars weren't locked up, keys sometimes in them. I'm from Montana, that's the way we lived. And so we've had to learn to change the way we think. And the neighborhood watch has been developed from meetings at our church. There's different things like that that happen. Because you'll have a rash of people coming by and stealing all the mail out of the mailboxes and doing different stuff like that. So you have to learn how to, okay, let's get to know each other well enough we know each other's cars. So if we see a strange car going through town, you know, other than the main drag, but if we see off on our little side roads out here, some strange thing coming down the driveway we don't recognize, we better see you with it, or, you know, that's the kind of stuff that good neighborhoods do for themselves. And that, like you say, you use some of this information, build some sort of a neighborhood security watch type thing, so that helps, yeah.
In our little tiny community, in a 12-mile stretch, about maybe 200 people, we've been having lately, it's all drug related, with the break-ins, thefts. Well, we've been gone this week, so buddy tried to walk off with 2 7-gallon propane tanks off a travel trailer that's there next to the church. But since they were full, they were too heavy, so they got them out to the front of the church and left them. They told me. So somebody found them. But since this has been happening, people have been coming to us knowing that the church has been getting hit too with break-ins and thefts. So just like stores and private residents, so they've been coming to me, what should we do about this? What can we do?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm the one that has contacted the sheriff's department and the commissioner and saying, hey, why don't we have law enforcement up here in North County?
Right.
And so, but people are looking to me, not just because I'm the pastor, but I'm also the president of the community action team. You know, on an incorporated community, so they, was it 20-some years ago, the Forest Service is the one that started these community action teams. So they, I tried to get away from it, said I'm spread too thin, I can't do everything, and besides, we make decisions that to do something for the community, and there's people that love it and people that hate it, and they're not separating that from me being the pastor of the church. They're putting it all together. And so, well, I got somebody taking my place for about 3 months, and it was dumped back in my lap again. But I'm getting what had been let go for about 20 years. They started a park, they got, and they just let it go.
Yeah.
And now, slowly, I'm getting that going through with playground equipment, lawn, get a ball field in there, and so some are starting to look at that and say, oh, getting something done for the first time.
Exactly right.
Where before it's been started and dropped, started, dropped, started, dropped. And so we had to come back and redo some of the things because
Wasn't done right.
it wasn't done right, or it had been overgrown
Right.
now, you know, for the lawn. But getting that in, that's supposed to be going in about now. So just things like that. I've tried the fire department again, small community like that, got spread too thin. I had to back off.
I had to do that too.
They kept me as the chaplain.
Yeah, right. And even though I backed off from this area council. They have their committee meetings at the church.
Mhm.
So I still did touch base.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
your security thing be something that would be helpful here?
It
I
might.
don't know, what we designed, we have a 2-person team on duty for each of 2 services. So we have 4 people working each Sunday. We have enough people that we can rotate, you only have to work 1 Sunday a month. We have a camera system, I'll be happy to show anybody that wants to see it in the office. We've got cameras placed where if one person is on duty in the office, they can watch every area outside and inside. So it's some planning ahead. They're available to call the police if we need them. The idea with our program is we want to be eyes and ears, and if we need help, we want to be able to call help. We're more likely, with security, a medical emergency is
Right.
the most likely event you're going to have. We have an AED upstairs, the defibrillator. We teach people how to use it on the team, first aid things. You have to look at what you're likely to encounter. But if anybody has questions after your presentation, I'll be happy, I'm more than happy to do,
That's good.
you know, for these
Yeah.
events,
Yeah.
I can put on a presentation for people if there's interest. We have a policy set up, you don't have to write your own policy, you need a policy. You need to talk to your insurance company, but we've worked through all of this and you don't have to reinvent it.
Yeah.
I will say that when you talk about churches getting hit with crime, the current trend now, if you have a heat pump, the current trend is to go, come in at night, they steal all the copper out of the heat pump and destroy it. So you put some kind of covering around it to camouflage it.
Yeah. I used to be able to store
But it's how it is,
our church ladders outside the building.
right?
It's aluminum.
Exactly.
They disappeared.
Exactly,
So we've had to buy fiberglass
right.
and put them in a place where they can be locked up.
I actually got a call from somebody where our ladder had been used in committing a crime.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we had our name on it, and they stole our ladder, went to a substation, used it to get over the wire fence, and stole copper wire from inside the substation, all that zzz going around them. And
Hobart Church.
yeah, Hobart Church ladder there, all broken. No, it wasn't us. Well, I didn't think it was you, but I thought you might be wondering where your ladder was. It's still good. I'll throw it away for you. Okay, you know. So there are some things that you deal with when you have community use of buildings. There are some people out there to do the wrong thing, and you just have to. We've lost 2 or 3 generators stolen off the back porch. There's just things like that you learn. Okay, we can't be the old Hobart of 40 years ago. We can't be. We have to wake up and smell the roses and do some things that will.
And it's not necessarily your community. If
Yeah.
you have a road in and a
You have
road
a road in
out,
going
you
around.
have people
Yep.
traveling from all over the
Exactly
state
right.
that are looking.
One of the things I have found, I thought that the people that we were serving, it might open the door. They'd go come in the church and case it when they're having the meal, you know? Because we get some pretty shady people coming in there sometimes.
Now we know their first names.
And now we know their first names, we're friends with them, and most of them say, I can't believe somebody would steal something from a church. Now, they wouldn't either unless they're high on drugs or something, but you never know. So,
If they happen to tell a story.
Right,
and
to
one of
somebody
their
else.
Associates hears it, then they.
that's right. Well, I want to close up just by closing with the idea of one of the biggest things we had is when I started looking for needs in the community, I was overwhelmed with how much our community needs. And we can't do it all. We have to just pick and choose what we're going to do and do it well. And then if the Lord opens another door and there's people that are interested, then you build towards that direction. But try to choose one that you do well, especially our small churches. You can't do everything. There's just no way to do it all. But if you can find a way to just, sometimes it's just showing up to some of these events. It's not actually being a part of it. There's ways to get food supplies and monies. Don't let that stop you. You can find grants that will serve and help you, and you can find other ways. You'd be surprised. One guy decided that he was going to tithe from his business to our meal program, to the tune of $500 a month. Now, if that doesn't take care of a lot of our excess needs, you know, he came to the meal and said, "This is what needs to happen. I don't have a church where I tithe, so I'm going to give it to you." And he's been doing it for like 4 or 5 years now. So you never know where God's going to supply, but He will supply. So much so that we have more problem getting rid of them yet. So, benefits of living Christ in the community. The very last thing. I just want to, first of all, we all know we want to please and glorify God with what we do. We can do that by serving our community. We are building the body of Christ through discipleship, evangelism, fellowship, and unity. and using all the gifts of the individual members. You'd be surprised at how many people in your church are gifted and will never even begin to tap into them. And once they get excited about something, they're gung-ho. You don't even, and what better way to teach people how to build relationship and evangelize and tell them to show up and just befriend these people. What do I do? What do I say now? Did you pray for them? Yeah, well, that's a start. You know, next time, here's a tract. Share that with you. You don't have to have another program to discipleship. You're teaching them right on the spot on how to do things. As long as they have that loving heart for the Lord, they really can't do much harm. We're reaching our community with the living gospel of Christ. The community wants to see Christ lived, not just talked about. We're building community with our neighbors and other gospel-preaching churches and ministries in the area. We've been able to share resources that we didn't even know were out there. And we wouldn't even had that opportunity if we had not found a way to get involved in community. Last, I think most, we're building and strengthening our faith as we see God supply and work. One of the neat things as a pastor is to see some of your helpers work. Wow, we just don't know how we're going to do this. What if 120 show up? Well, we'll find a way. You know, what if, are we going to have enough food? How's this going to happen? I said, well, we're going to have to trust God sometimes. And then all of a sudden it happens. And God supplies us. Oh, He does do what He says, doesn't He? Your people will grow by leaps and bounds, just watching Christ meet the needs of you as well as your community as you work together. So that's my encouragement. Find a way. Find an opportunity. And if it's not a meal program, that's fine. But find something that, look at the people in your church. Find their skills. Find a need in the community. Put them together so that they recognize they're serving Christ by serving their community. And you'd be surprised at how many people are reached. I now have one of my board members that's working at Vine Maple Place. He's a real financial guy. Went down to Vine Maple Place. Now he helps the moms that come in that don't know how to handle their finances. And he helps do a class for the moms to show them how to set up a budget and how to do it. They've never done it before. But here he is, being used by the Lord in what He has the gifts and ability to do. That's what we haven't been doing well in the church. If we just get them in the door, we're happy as pastors. They listen to my message. No. Connect their gifts up with needs. And watch God work. And it's amazing what God does. Let's close that prayer. Father, thank You for this opportunity. Thank You for Your love and Your care that You've shown to us. We depend solely on You, Lord, because it's not of us that anything happens. It's of You. We want to be sure that we are ready when the doors of opportunity open to step in with Your love, with Your truth, and with Your gospel, living it in front of the people. We ask that we leave here doing that. In Jesus' name.